Susie Moore. I'm so happy you're here. Welcome back.
Cathy, I'm so lucky. I think this is my third time on your podcast. I'm so blessed. I'll take any minute with you that I can. So thank you so much.
I mean, if this was the Oprah show, you would be on every show. So I'm so happy to have you here. I feel like I say this to you all the time, but you are like Tinkerbell. And what's so amazing about the degree of your Tinkerbellness is that you have this generosity. So it's as if you take this beautiful glow and you put it in a little jar and you give it to people all the time. And then they wind up having just a much better day because of you, because you exist.
Oh, what a lovely compliment. Thank you, Cathy. I do think that if we can be authentically happy and light and easier about things, it is a gift to others, because others get to see like a little sneak peek into what's possible, and that you can kind of go through life with, a lightness, not taking it all so seriously, and just having a good time. For me, that's a big priority always.
It is. And it seems like something that we hear all the time, but when I'm having a conversation with you, which thankfully I get to do often, I realize that battle, that quest to claim a state of well-being, to actually drop in, is not something that is modeled, is not something that most of us are familiar with. And it's just amazing. Like you and I were talking recently, how there'll always be some justifiable reason where I'm like, oh, everything's amazing. Totally. But I'm trying to figure out what school my kids should go to, but I'm really not sure if we should do this thing to the house, and it's really stressing me out. And you're just like, that's so juicy, right? Look how we just have almost an addiction to making things a little bit harder than they actually even are. So you wrote this new book called Let It Be Easy. And I really think it's a book that should be required reading. I think everyone should read this book, because I do think that we're missing this precious gift, which is our life. So tell us why you wanted people to read it, what you want them to walk away with from reading this book. And then we're going to go into some of the most juicy, mind-opening, expansive ideas that you have just put simply into this book.
Oh, I can't wait. Well, let it be easy. As you know, Cathy, when I grew up, I lived in shelters, right? Domestic abuse shelters, constantly moving, addiction in my family, abuse. I mean, the police were at my house. There was a lot of chaos and unpredictability. And when I was growing up, I thought to myself, okay, this is now, right? Like, I'm a kid, I'm not in control. I saw my mom struggle. I saw my dad struggle. And so I thought, when I grow up and I see like these women on TV, I'm going to like wear a pencil skirt, and I'm going to make money in a great job, and I'm going to marry a normal man who I live with in one house, and it's going to be normal, and I'm going to be relaxed, and it's going to be easy, right? That was kind of always my idea. And then I did manage to create that, right? So like, moved to America, got married, have a great husband. By the age of 30, I was making $500,000 working in tech in the Silicon Valley world, but it still wasn't easy. It was a different type of heart that I was experiencing, like low-level anxiety, putting a lot of pressure on myself, wanting to control things. And I remember thinking, when do I get to stretch my legs? Exactly. Like, when do I get to actually kick back? Because it certainly wasn't back then. And if I've done all the things and like tick, 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 got the things that I thought I needed in order to have an easier, more settled, relaxed life, like, where is it? Like, where is it? And that's why I just really became obsessed with like understanding what it means to really live a good life, and to understand that ease is really just a skill like any other, but no one teaches it and no one represents it. Everyone will tell you the opposite. Life is hard. This is suffering. Being married is hard. Being single is hard. Having kids is hard. Not having kids is hard. Making money is hard. Not having money is hard. Everything is represented as hard, and I just call it insanity. And that's not how I choose to live.
Oh, and you are really the only person I can think of who is a representation of true letting it feel good. And I say truly because there's often times where we don't see that. And then there's other times where we see it, but it seems forced, or it seems like somebody's in denial about something and it doesn't seem integrated. And so it doesn't actually feel inviting.
Mm-hmm.
And because you really truly have the capacity to feel all your feelings, you
Mm-hmm.
haven't had this easy street life by any stretch.
Mm-hmm.
And you really get what's up. You really understand the high stakes. You really understand the full range of the human experience. It's
Mm-hmm.
so integrated. It's so honest. And it reminds me of what Gay Hendricks said when he was here the last time. And he
I love
said,
him.
yeah, I know you do.
Mm-hmm.
You really are among those greats with your beautiful, wise light. But I remember him saying how at the end of the day, like it really is about our capacity to receive.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked Gary Zukav a similar question, and he said, oh, it's just really this whole muscle around receiving. And so when you just said, like, this is hard, that's hard, this is hard, that's hard, there must be a payoff, right? There must be a payoff. And that's probably some form of protection.
Mm-hmm.
Why it's got to be a little stressful. We got to make it harder than it has to be. What is that really about?
Oh, I love this question. I mean, first of all, I think that, like, as you said, no one models ease. No one ever says to you, or you're very lucky if someone ever says to you, go for it. That's possible. Like, that's going to be easy for you. There'll be work that you have to do. There'll be challenges and obstacles. Yes. But if your desire is there, then the mechanics of its fulfillment is within you. Like, that is the truth, first of all, right? But we just see everyone sweating and struggling and feeling virtue about their sweating and struggling. And then it's so easy to think that in order to achieve anything great, it requires your stress, right? Your pain. And it's almost as if you kind of look at ease as something that's always actually around you, always surrounds you, it's something that shows up like a small miracle every time you just remember to tune into it. You don't even have to choose it or create it. It's just always there. And you just look at life with like, how serious is this? How serious is the stress that I'm feeling? Maybe this is just very habitual for me to wake up and look at all the things that I have to do with this heavy feeling. And it's almost scary to think, who could I be without that stress, so much of that imagined stress? And to be happy, to really be happy and to allow joy to its maximum, it takes courage. Right? It takes no courage to be cynical. It takes no courage to be really hard on yourself and to be hard on others. But to go, wow, look, my life's good. Apart from maybe what I'm thinking and believing that's causing stress, everything around me is actually really, really quite good. I mean, am I going to allow myself to enjoy this? That requires some self-love. Like, that requires some self-love. It requires some presence. It requires some wisdom, right? Because no one can do this for you. I mean, people can give you affirmations and all sorts of tools, but it's like, are you going to allow yourself to be happy? And being happy can be scary sometimes because we don't want to lose our happiness. And if we feel happy, maybe we think we won't hustle hard, or we won't, we'll become so chill that we'll stop being ambitious. It's simply not true, because when you remove stress, so much imagined stress from the equation, you also just become more creative. And things can flow to you. It opens up different, centers of the brain that allows you to have better ideas, also receiving. And I think that can be very uncomfortable when we're so used to doing the opposite.
100%. It reminds me of Brene Brown's work around joy and how it's the scariest, most vulnerable feeling. Mm-hmm. And when you first hear her say that, you're like, that doesn't sound right. It sounds like she should be saying that jealousy or fear or whatever, self-doubt is the scariest feeling. And actually, it turns out it's joy because of that vulnerability. As she's saying, it correlates with vulnerability. And then what happens is within like 8 or 9 seconds of fully dropping into a feeling of joy, there is a foreboding. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, why did I let myself totally let go just now and receive this moment? Now I'm worried what's happening to my husband on that next business trip. Now I'm worried something's going to come along and ruin this new amazing position of this job or that's what we do. And so then we go back into having a little low level or a high level of stress to keep us from feeling that vulnerability.
And it can feel like that's helpful because we're then somehow controlling something, or that, if we have anxiety about it, or if we're even, making moves to control others and to prevent things from happening that are really outside of our control. Sometimes I think we trick ourselves into thinking that that's beneficial, but it's not. But it truly, it's not. I remember, and I opened the book by sharing how Heath, my husband, who wanted to leave me. I was so difficult. I wanted to control him. I wanted to control our weekends. I had opinions on everything. I knew the right way to do things. I definitely knew the wrong way to do things. And it was my job to make it very clear, to be general manager of the universe. And that would only result, if I kept going that way, that would only have resulted in a huge loss for me and a lot of additional stress in my life, unless I checked it, questioned it. Einstein said an unexamined life isn't worth living, right? So we need to examine, what is it that we're thinking? What are we believing? Is it helpful? Is it true? Is it causing unnecessary stress? And in so many cases, it is, and it's heartbreaking because it's unnecessary. But I feel like this isn't something that comes into our consciousness. People will go, yeah, success, yeah, love, yeah, abundance. But what about the ease of it too? What about it just being something that's meant to happen for you? It's just kind of meant. We're all here. No one asked to be here at this time, but we're here now. There are no accidents. And it's not because we're being tested, right? It's not because there's some force that wants us to do right or there'll be trouble later. It's to enjoy ourselves.
Ourselves.
And to make our contribution.
And what you just said was so beautiful. So it's really courageous because people don't like to start their book with, here's something that was less than ideal that was happening in my life. But if you're listening to this right now and you related to that, I want you to DM me, or you can DM Susie on Instagram, because I can raise my hand and say, absolutely, that's been an ongoing struggle in my marriage, is trying to control everything. And I don't even like who I am when I'm that obsessed with every detail and how we're spending every day. And why can't he just choose what we're going to do with the kids on a Saturday? Why do I have to keep going into that role? So I do understand that. And I think what you just said about the beliefs thing, and this is what we're going to kind of go into now in your book, Let It Be Easy, which is, again, required reading. And by the way, I'm going to mention this at the end of the show, but if you do go ahead and get Susie's book, which you should get, you'll love it. It'll just make you feel like you're floating on a cloud. If you buy it, we're going to do a call with everybody who buys the book in just a few weeks, and just a free get together, a little Q&A, a little coaching on the spot. It'll be really fun. But as far as what you talk about in this book, I think one of the biggest beliefs is this idea that in order to have the good life, in order to have success, in order to have the house with the wraparound porch and the 3.2 kids and whatever it is, there is a lot of grinding and hustling and exhaustion and sacrifice. And my friend Susie Moore, you might know her, she does not live that way. You're the only person I know who takes yourself to lunch regularly, buys yourself a beautiful handbag with a little thank you note from yourself. Spends more time walking the beach than you do checking email. And the world is your oyster. Anyone who knows you, anyone who is witness to your work, feels immediately pulled into a vortex that is this shimmery, beautiful love and goodness. So tell us about how all the ways we've been prescribed to get the goals, to achieve this beautiful life at all costs. Tell us how that is, in fact, not necessarily so. And what instead are some of the things that you implement, the advice that we can implement that's in your book that is quite on the contrary?
You're right. Everyone teaches us, and we learn that in order to create the life that we want, there is a lot of sacrifice, right? There is just a lot of, emotion. There is a lot of negative experience. You will have to, give up sleep. You'll have to compromise on certain things. And look, that's not to say, right? Because sometimes people say to me, oh, let it be easy. Doesn't that mean you just sit on the sofa and let things happen? It's not that. Right. I still take a lot of action. Right. And letting it be easy is doing the same actions you would if you were stressed, just minus the brick rucksack on your back that's weighing you down. And when I love to read autobiographies and to study very successful people, especially when they have very, different and varied backgrounds. And one thing that I've noticed when I've observed people who I love to just follow is their best moments, their best creative ideas, their best inventions happen when they're having fun. Like I remember even listening to Taylor Swift. She said that she was eating cereal on her bed with her friend and they were talking about their ex-boyfriends, and then she's like, Taylor Swift said, I knew he was trouble when he walked in. And,
Oh, God.
and then her friend's like, that's got to be in a song. And she's like, let's call it that. I knew you were trouble when you walked in. And imagine if Taylor Swift was there going, first of all, imagine if she was in real estate because she didn't even trust her heart, right? And she's like, real estate's responsible and houses are safe and you've got to bet on the good mark. First of all, she's doing the right thing. She's allowing who she is to be, right? And then she's with her friend on a bed eating Cheerios. And then like the most amazing line comes to her and then they're jamming all night, like on what the song could be. Right. So, and I remember another time I
Brilliant example.
Yeah, but like, look, and so if she had to sit down and go, I've got to come up with a great song lyric right now by 10 a.m. because I've got something else at 11 and and then I can't miss this. I'm so rigid. Like, where's the space? Like, where's the magic? Like, where's the room for the muse?
Yeah.
And I remember I listened to an interview with Kate Moss a long time ago. In the UK, she was everything for a long period. And she said when she was growing up, before she was a model, her mum said, what do you want to do, Kate? You're always, pie in the sky. And she's like, I just want to have fun all the time. And her mum's like, you can't just have fun all the time. And she's like, why not? Why can't I have fun all the time? And then she's like, and then this modeling thing came up and I just get to walk up and down a thing with my friends all the time. And look, it's not to say Taylor Swift is working hard, Kate Moss works hard. These people are working, they're doing the stuff behind the scenes, but they're doing it differently. But they're kind of like that. The way that I look at it, Cathy, is like they're in on the joke. Because we can do all the things and hustle and yes, get results. But if we're not enjoying ourselves, I just feel like the joke's on us. And I don't want to get to the end of my life and be like, oh, like that whole experience, like that was the point. It wasn't to make it through life unscathed, to make it through life without criticism, to hold back on something or to not mess up. It's like, am I like day to day, like this moment is our life. Right? Like today, this moment right now, it's our life. And there's never actually a stage that, going back to how everyone tells you everything's so hard. And, like, for example, you've got 3 great girls. People will tell you newborns are hard, toddlers are hard. Oh, teenagers, they're the worst. When do you get to enjoy your kids? Like, if you're always in the worst stage. And I remember I was reading this very famous, I think he's the #1 footballer in the world. He said, when you're starting out as a footballer, he's like, no one respects you when you're at the bottom, right? You're brand new. When you're in the middle, everyone ignores you, right? Because you're just in the middle. He's like, when you're at the top, everyone comes after you, right? And when you're at the top, because he's at the top, he's like, you're terrified of losing it. So I'm like, where exactly do you start letting it be fun? And letting it be easy? Like, at what stage are you going to go, wow, look at me, look at this, look at, I get to play this sport? Never, because there's always like something to worry about if you buy into that way of thinking, which you don't have to, because it is absurd when you just sit for a moment and question it. And I would say, don't even listen to me. Just think about that. Like, just think about that and see if it's true for you that is absurdity. And the sad thing is, this is how a lot of us live. I certainly was living that way for a long time until I was conscious enough to know, like, the joke is on me. If I'm so stressed out, I'm doing so many things to like make my life good, but it's actually causing me more trouble than anything else.
I feel like every single person needs to rewind that and play that every single day for yourself. And we were talking on the phone the other day, and I mentioned to you that I just interviewed Bronnie Ware, who wrote The 5 Biggest Regrets of the Dying. And she said, being a hospice nurse for 9 years, sitting with people in their last moments, eventually she felt she had to write something about what she saw. And there was this pattern that was exactly what you're talking about, where people just had tremendous regret around, I didn't actually let myself have more fun. And instead of doing the things I wanted to do, I thought things like, well, what would the neighbors say? When you really take that in, what would the neighbors say? And now you're 91 and there's nothing you can do about it. And did those neighbors really care that much? And did it matter that much what they said anyway, even if they cared, even if they moved because of what you were doing? Well, you dyed your hair blue and they couldn't, oh, there goes the neighborhood, whatever it is. But this, I didn't let myself have more fun. And she also said that when people were in those moments, they missed having connected and staying connected with their friends. Because those were the relationships where they just got to be this unleashed, unabashed version of themselves, right? There wasn't someone with an expectation. And so it really goes back to what you're saying. And I want you now to show us a little behind the curtain of how you do indeed live your life. And some of the things you talk about in the book, like taking yourself to lunch. What are some of the things that we can start doing, start practicing, start thinking, some behaviors that will actually change this feeling of, I get to the end of the week, and it's really been a whole bunch of stress. And instead, letting it feel good and letting it be easier.
It always makes me sad when someone says, you know, it's almost the weekend, like living for the weekend isn't any way to live. I mean, 2 days out of 7, I mean, you want to live your life waiting for the weekend? I mean, that's already tragic, like tragic. And I mean, I think the self-care movement has missed the mark, right? Like we've been telling women everywhere, balance and bubble baths and that, you know, spa days. And look, those things are nice, sure. Like if they make you happy, good, right? But it's even simpler than that. Like it's even more available where you are right now with what you have, without anything changing, without you buying anything, without anything being required externally. The best thing that I do is whenever I feel stress coming on, right? And so you can almost like, you can see the email in the inbox, something's bad news, right? There's an unwanted outcome. There's a mean comment. You have a result that you don't want in your business or in your life somewhere, right? And then you can feel that like wave almost like hit you. And you know that unless there's some type of interrupt or something conscious that comes in from you, that can become a spiral of everything. Like I suck, life sucks, my life's over, nothing is safe, I hate this, I want to go away and live in the woods. Like, and not talk to anybody ever again. Like we can, like that little piece of like energy that we give our stress, right, can become this huge momentum, right, that just snowballs. So whenever I feel that stress coming on, and look, it happens, right, things don't always go your way, bad things do happen, you know, bad things happen, right? So I have 3 questions that I ask, and these are so life-changing, right? They're simple and very powerful. So something happens, right? Something external, like a stimuli, we call it unwanted, that feels like it's going to create stress and something's bad and unsafe, right? That's going on right now. My first question, and like this, you want to do this as soon as possible, right? You don't want to wait till the next day because you've had a whole day of suffering, right? Or a whole day of talking out the problem and focusing on the problem. And we know what we focus on expands, So before it snowballs, you want to like interrupt it immediately. And the first question is, how serious is this really? Right? Because the way that our brain is wired, right? You know this, Cathy, we perceive everything as a physical threat. The body, the primitive part of the brain, will see an email, right? Or a mean comment, and that's why we have these somatic symptoms, right? Like our heart can race, we have tunnel vision, we have racing thoughts, you know, it's like, oh, our body feels like we're physically under threat, right? And no wonder we're so stressed out. I used to be on high blood pressure medication. I would take everything so like seriously. And I'm like, okay, how serious is this really? With the exception of maybe something urgent with your children or something to do with like, you know, physical safety, very little is serious. And truly, I mean, this is a point of celebration, right? Very little is serious. There's a delay. Someone doesn't like you, like whatever it may be. How serious is this really? And like really 3 deep breaths, interrupt to stop that physical response, which is like the panic, yeah. You know, I need to shut down. So number 1, how serious is this really? Secondly, because there will be an action required, you know, in most cases, what's essential here? Like, what's essential here? Because often we'll think there are 3 million things that I have to do right now, and they have to be perfect, and I have to stop this, and whatever it may be. You'll start building up this big story and idea of like what has to happen, and maybe actually nothing needs to happen, or a couple of small things need to happen based on what's essential. And then my favorite question, number 3, is like, how can I let it be easy? How can I let this next action and how I feel about this be easy? And this is a very self-loving place to live. Like when you're like, how can I? And just one example that I have, which is small but could feel threatening, right? I remember once, Cathy, someone said to me, email me saying, can we have your slides for tomorrow? Meaning like PowerPoint slides.
When that happens.
This rarely happens to me because I'm so organized and reliable, right? So I also took that as a ding on my like, wow, I'm so pristine with how reliable I am. And then so I got this email about, where are your slides? Can we have your slides for tomorrow? I forgot I had the meeting. I did remember committing, but it was a while ago and I was slideless. Right. And so I had the panic, like, oh my gosh, what a mess up. This is so unprofessional. It's so story, right? How serious is this really? Like truly if I got hit by a bus today, the event would still happen tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like, how serious is this? Not that serious. It's an inconvenience, but not that serious. Secondly, what's essential here? They use my face and name in the marketing, right? So what's essential is just that I show up. Right? The only essential thing is me, my time, like for an hour, and my honesty, just coming with an open heart. And then, letting it be easy. I was like, how can this be easy? I just said to the guy, why don't we just do a Q&A instead? There's that way, there's nothing for me to prepare.
Brilliant.
And he was like, most people don't like to do that. They like to have their prepared. And I was like, I think this can be really fun and intimate, and people can just ask what they want. We'll get to the good stuff immediately. And it turned out so well. But you can imagine the other way it could have gone. Like I could have killed myself creating slides, killed my designer, freaked out, berated myself, like thought like I'm such an idiot. I love myself too much to do that. Like, I'm not going to stay awake all night freaking out to do something. Like, I'm a human being. There was an oversight. It's okay. How serious is it? What's essential? How can it be made easy? So this can apply to so many things, big and small. And even just the first question itself, if that's all you remember from this, it can save you. It can save you in so many situations.
I mean, it's so incredible. And you and I had another conversation recently where I reached out to you and I said, Susie, I need to hear your perspective on this because I know better than to feel down about this. And I would just love it if you would pour into me a little bit of your perspective. And the reason I'm asking you is because A, it's a good example of what you just said. And B, I posted something recently about this on Instagram, and it was more viral than anything else I've ever posted. And it was about accepting the fact that you will not be able to get everybody to like you. And there will be people who don't. And it's so liberating. And the reason I'm talking about it is because I do think, and as we continue to talk about your book, I think one of the biggest things that inhibits us is constantly thinking like, what will people think, right? Mm-hmm. For sure, before you're about to do a slideshow, it's like, oh my God, how will this look if I don't have slides? And that's why I want to overdo it with the slides. And oh my God, what's he going to think of me? And oh my gosh, who am I going to let down? I want to be liked, and I want to belong to everyone. And so I called Susie a couple of weeks ago and I said, what do you do? Just remind me, because I'm sure this happens every once in a while where somebody says something rude on your YouTube or something like that. Mm-hmm. And you said, and I'm going to give you a chance to then sort of like unpack it even more. Mm-hmm. But you said, Cathy, you said, the problem isn't that it happens, because it always will. Mm-hmm. The problem is that you think it shouldn't happen. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh my God, that is such an easier way, because it really goes back to allowing, and it's a total game changer. It's like, oh yeah, there'll always be people who don't like you. Like, welcome to life and having a human experience. Mm-hmm. Say a little bit more about that, because I do think that that's one of the places where we really don't let it be easy. Mm-hmm. And I think it rules our life more than we think that it does.
Oh, yes. I've even learned over the years that we don't even fear failure, really. We know that if we went bankrupt or if something went wrong, we know at our core that we're capable of bouncing back and figuring things out. But the judgment from others, like of our perceived failure, that's the kicker. Right, like that's the, oh no, like how could I run and hide and
So
not let
juicy.
any,
Yeah.
yeah. And this is why, public takedown, I mean, we see it all the time, right? And it's really funny how we think, right? And this is truly, I mean, as human beings, we think that, people should all accept us, they should like us, right? And if we have an opinion, people should either agree with it or at least they should be silent and say nothing. And like, is that real? Like, is it people need to like us. They shouldn't say mean things. They shouldn't like try and do these tear downs. They shouldn't, gang up on us. And, well, they always will. Right. This is as old as time. There is nothing new here. And so the fact that this happens, right, and blessings bring persecution, right? If you're someone who has things going on, you've got an opinion, you're doing well at something, that you are going to be persecuted. Like there'll be people who don't like it, who stand up against you. It's just to be expected, and it will happen in perpetuity, right? So it's like, where is the let it be easy in that, right? It's the acceptance of it, right? Because your resistance, right, our resistance to it is where the suffering is, right? It's like yeah, guess what, someone says that I'm da 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 da, and it's like, that's what she's doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
How serious is this really? I mean, if someone's coming to your house and threatening you, that's one thing, right? But I haven't heard of that yet.
No,
It's like people saying their business, having their opinion, having a critical point of view. They're completely allowed. Like they are completely allowed. They'll continue to do it. It'll get worse the more successful you become or the more visible you become. And so what if there was just no resistance to it? Like absolutely none. I remember Wayne Dyer, he would say he'd agree with people. He would say, someone would say, oh, like they'd go, oh, Wayne, he's so boring. He's so da-da-da. And he's like, well, if you spoke to my ex-wife, you should agree with you. It was just like in A Course in Miracles, it says, in my defenselessness, my safety lies. So why do we need to defend ourselves and set everybody straight? That's the crazy part. Right? Not the criticism. It's like the resistance, the control, and the desire to create something different or to force something different. Like, what if it's just okay with you and we can just let it be?
it's so good, you guys, isn't it? Aren't you? I know you all know Susie, but if you don't, you're now in love with her. There's so many juicy chapters in this book. I just want to go over a few of them because this is one you don't see very often. And I want to hear what you had to say about this.
Okay.
Success is very unsexy.
Oh, yes.
What do you mean by that?
Well, look at anybody who's achieved success in any area, right? Say there's a really efficient, happy stay-home parent, right? Or there is an athlete, or there is someone, who's created a business. We see like the cute kid pics, right? At family photo time,
Yeah.
or we'll see like the gold medals. Right. And that's what everyone's profile picture will be. Right. Or we'll see like their launch numbers, if that's what they share, or, all the kind of juicy bits. Everything that leads up to that is routine, boring, repetition behind the scenes. Right. So like an athlete isn't waking up and like putting on a dress and like looking at their trophies and like, hanging out with rock stars. Like they're getting up early, they're eating certain foods, they're going to like, whatever their sport is for hours, practice. The routine. When I was a nanny, the children I looked after, it was just routine, baths, this, nothing sexy about that behind the scenes, right? Running a business is like, look at my email open rates, looking at my conversions, looking at my ads, looking at my media, consistently pitching, like creating content, tech issues,
Right.
fixing them. I think that we think that everyone else is having all the fun. But it's like success. There are these unsexy steps that we all take. It's routine, but it's all leading somewhere. And that's where the ease and joy comes, right? Sometimes we're looking at what we have to do, right? And it's almost like we're looking at a road, we're looking at the asphalt lines, right? We're looking so straight down versus looking at the vision of like, where's this all leading? Like, I have a beautiful dream for what it is I'm creating. Like that's my motivation. That's where that's where I focus my energy, and so much more can flow. But it's like, know that you're not alone behind the scenes doing all those boring, consistent things. Like success is repetition. Repetition isn't like, the Grammy Awards, but that's what gets you to the Grammy Awards, if that's your goal.
Yeah. And that's why it's so important to just enjoy those steps. Another thing that you talk about in the book, which comes up a lot in the conversations I have with my audience, is imposter syndrome, right? It's just like this is a more contagious thing than COVID for sure.
Yes.
And you say, if you don't feel like an imposter, are you really going for it?
Yeah. So how about that? What's wrong with imposter syndrome? Feeling uncomfortable because you're doing new things. Good for you. Like, confidence is your willingness to be uncomfortable. Doing new things, you're not comfortable immediately. Like that wouldn't be natural. So if you're feeling uncomfortable and like, gosh, I'm not sure I'm ready for this, high five. Like, yes, good for you. And it's so interesting because people say, fake it till you make it. I don't like that. I don't like that. But another way of looking at it is, fake it until you become it. Right. So if I say, oh, I'm not a podcaster, right? Like I couldn't have a podcast. That's not what I do. And just say I did my first episode as a podcaster, I'd have imposter syndrome. I'd be like, am I doing it right? How do I compare to Cathy, who's got the best podcast in the world? But then if I did 2 episodes, 3, 4, 10, 15, 20, am I then not just truthfully a podcaster? Right. And then then there'd be something else, right? Eventually another goal. So I don't know why we feel we feel that discomfort is so bad, or that it means something's wrong. Like it's part of it. It's part of growth. And I know that if I don't feel at least a little bit uncomfortable with something all the time, whether it's work or if it's, changing something in my health, I think I'm probably coasting, if I'm being very honest. Yeah. And self-help, in my opinion, is when we just start telling ourselves the truth. And so what's wrong with being uncomfortable? Like, it's to be expected if you want to do big things.
Yeah, 100%. I used to take many classes at the UCLA Mindful Awareness Center, and they were talking about how parents do this thing where they don't want their kids to be uncomfortable. They want to, take away the discomfort. Oh, my kids, we're going to be sitting in traffic. I'll get them an iPad. There's going to be a doctor's visit. I'll just, I'll bring toys to the appointment, all this and that. And then what happens is we don't understand our own capacity to tolerate being uncomfortable. And like you said about people who won't like us, there will be days and there will be moments that are not pleasant. And it's really part of the process. But if we can make space for it, we realize we can actually turn toward it. And maybe that's just part of this. And maybe it's actually not such a big deal. Maybe it doesn't have to be comfortable all the time. Maybe actually there's something juicy and interesting and actually something pleasant, even about being with yourself and making it through those moments. I mean, I've had moments where like I put off a dental cleaning and then there's some satisfaction about you went and you tolerated it and it was fine. And actually you feel really good for the rest of the day that you like had the ability to just make space for something that was uncomfortable. You also talk in the book, you say, stop picturing success and do this instead. What's the do this?
Yes. Well, I think that probably, those of us who've been in the self-help world or have followed coaches and so forth, it's, historically it's quite bro-y, right? It's like the 10 steps, so yeah. And
you want to make 16 figures by Friday? Do this. I want 31 figures. I want 31 flavors. I want 31 figures in 6 months.
Or you'll see like them with their Lamborghini, right? Or like some private jet. And I mean, people market how they will and present how they will. And look, bros are fun too. I think they've got good ideas, but but it's like, what does success look like? People will tell you what it looks like. They'll say you have a house like this and you have a family like this and this is how you look and these are who your friends are. And there's like this something that feels actually quite prescribed about that. Like, this is it. You have it when. And so, I mean, such a better question to ask. And this is how you know that you're telling the truth for you. Because it's when we feel that we really know things, right? Because when we think we're other people a lot of the time, what does success feel like to me? Like, what does it feel like?
Yeah.
It's such a gentle difference, just like one word change. Like, what does it look like to what does it feel like? But success to me feels very unrushed. Like, I feel very relaxed. I feel certain, like this quiet certainty. I feel steady. I feel creative. I feel very loving towards myself and others. And I can tell you that, energetically speaking, that's a high attraction energy. So it's not just like, get out there and like, but where's your alarm clock? And like work out, go to CrossFit. Like, ooh.
Yeah.
I don't even, I mean, for some people, yeah, that works, but it has to feel like, what does it feel like to you? And I think that no one really asks us this, or we don't ask ourselves this question. What does success feel like to you? Like,
Yeah.
what does it feel like? You can even start thinking like, actually speaking, is it, what do your clothes feel like? What does your home feel like? What do your friendships feel like? It's so unique, and that's what we're here to follow.
Yeah. And often I love this because people are asking that question, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? And I'm often saying, why don't we ask a different question, which is, who am I supposed to be? And to go back to the beginning of this conversation, instead of the hustling and the grinding, it's amazing how you can collapse time and space. You can literally manifest, receive, whatever word you want to actualize, live into the experiences that you're dreaming of, when instead of working on the to-dos as much as you think you need to, you are really bringing a certain resonance into the world. Your energy, as you type an email, as you walk down the street, as you speak to your friends, as you snap a selfie, when the frequency, when the vibration changes, when there's a resonance that has something to it that starts to feel more expansive, you will invite, you will unlock the hardest locks that you could never pick with what you were doing.
And it's really amazing to look back in your history, and because we all have a history with the universe, to look back and go, what did success feel like in my happiest moments? And there are so many clues, right? Like, it's not like, let me get, figure this out. And like, what does it feel like to me, and make this a hard thing? It's like, when have you felt your best? Like, when have you felt like alive and in the moment, and just like your timing is good and you just feel connected, and there's just real no resistance in your body. Like, that's how you can feel. That's how you have felt before. And so what was happening? Like, there is so much information there. And
it's such a phenomenal question. I think everybody who's listening, I want you to ask yourself that. When did you last feel that way? Like, how did it feel? Where were you? I think about it, and what comes to mind is a lot of feminine type feelings, like being at Blackberry Mountain and feeling this soft, gentle, enjoying myself. I think about my 40th birthday party, just letting all these people throw this party, which I was so hell-bent on doing it myself, and then just letting it happen, and in receiving it, I felt so alive, right? So yeah, it's an important thing, because if your definition of success is something else, let's say that didn't feel good, and why are we chasing that? Why are we chasing that?
Oh, because we have all the messages about like what things are and what things should be, and it's just all, I mean, I think this is something that makes me laugh out loud. It's like, every idea of success or every kind of metric was created by somebody else, right? And you're also a person who gets to create. And so whatever someone has said, or whatever standards have been set, that was by someone just like you, and so now you get to define. So you're like, the corner of the world that you touch, it's entirely up to you. And no one in history, no one who's set these kind of benchmarks, whatever they may look like, they're not better than you. Like, they're not smarter than you. They don't know more than you. They just kind of maybe more resolute in how they, in what they're thinking and how they're sharing that. But the power that we have is massive. Like, whenever I think about just the options that we have in our life. Like it's so, whenever we come back to the options that we have, when we feel stuck, we think that we're out of options and we don't really pay attention to what possibilities lay before us. And when you think about it, like we could live in any country, like we could do any work, like we can shut something else down, do this. We could, decide to spend our mornings doing this versus that. I mean, we have so much power. And I think sometimes we forget that. And it's a wonderful thing to remember, how much is really up to us.
That's why it's such an incredible gift to have you walking through this world, Susie Moore, because so often we reach for the highest branch that we can see, and people model all of these fascinating behaviors. Like, no, by this age, you need to be married. Oh, no, you need to live in the same house for 30 years. Your kids must go to the same school. That's stability, that's success. No, that would be too all over the place, or nobody does that. And now what are you seeing in the pandemic, in the wake of it? You're seeing, oh, we're actually just getting an RV and move around the world. Like, why did we ever think that that's not even allowed, right? Like you could live in Paris 3 months of the year. You could homeschool your kids. A lot of parents did that and decided, there was such ease and space in that. I'm not going to go back to the way that it was. We don't have to live that way. I don't have to live in this stressful, high intensity city to make this much money. I'm going to do something totally different. But those are not things that we often even know are on the table. But when we follow Susie Moore, and I want you all to be following her on Instagram, so you can just kind of like drink in her energy every day, you will start to see how much more ease is here to choose. So a couple more things. You said something in the book that nobody says, which is the pursuit of happiness is miserable.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Oh, yes. It's like, when something feels elusive and it's just around the corner and it's like, oh, wait, but I'm not that thin yet. Like, or there's something, or, well, look, I've reached this level, but there's one more, or, I've gotten a lot of praise, but I need praise from that one particular person. It has to be exactly from her at the right time. It's like the pursuit of that is like life. Abraham Hicks said this, she said, most people are trying to pursue a happy life, but life is just a string of happy moments. And we completely miss it because we're just in this desperate, like, search for a happy life, and like happiness is, laughing in the car, right? Or having an idea and then like following through on that, doing something spontaneous, telling someone that you love them. I mean, the joy is now. Like, I mean, we learn about presence, we hear about it. And, sometimes we're like, yeah, presence, breath work, Yes, all those things are helpful. But I feel like it's just even simpler, just expecting the moment to be good. And in any situation, just knowing that anything that's lacking is just something that you're not giving, something that you're not bringing, or something that you're not allowing in. And this is in difficult situations too. In the book, I talk about divorce, I talk about grief, I talk about loss. It's honest. It's honest. Like in life, these things happen. Like they happen to all of us after a certain period. So what is it that, like, how else can, like, how can we be loving? How can this situation be something that, we can, our contribution is the energy in which we bring to it. That, in my opinion, is the most generous way to live too, because when you're happy, when you're an example of someone who's, achieving things and doing cool things in the world, but also having a good time and not being hard on yourself and not criticizing yourself and not being so quick to jump to things that are going wrong or what you've done wrong. Like, wow, like what a, like, who's she? Like, who does she think she is? And it's like someone who's living their life really unconcerned with who and what you think she may be, So I feel like, when we can just allow happy moments, right, expect them and like be present fully. Like this is, I mean, I remember one time I was at the beach and this is in Europe, and it was those, the small Italian beaches. There are very few chairs. And this is in my before stage, before I let anything be easy. I got there early, got these chairs. I was stressed out. Heath was late. I was miserable. I thought we could have got better chairs. It was just this kind of, I was stressed out on my day at the beach, right? And my only goal was to have fun, but I thought to have fun, I needed the perfect seat at the perfect time. etc., etc. And then this other couple like rolled up kind of late and they couldn't even get a seat. So they were kind of lying with their towels, semi-wet, like because the tide was coming at them. That's how small the beach was, such limited space. And they were laughing and they were making out and they were having far more fun than me with my nice chair or my perfect spot getting there early. And I'm like, the joke once again is on me. Like the happy moment is
it's hilarious. It's hilarious because we can all remember being in like the most quintessential perfect. You're in Hawaii, you're at your son's bar mitzvah, whatever it is, everything's perfect, but you're so upset because somebody looked at you funny or your shoes are hurting. And like, that's all you can think about. And it reminds me of when my husband and I were first dating and we flew to Florida so he would meet my parents for the first time. And I wanted that, even though I grew up in Boca, I wanted to take him to South Beach because I was like, oh, I want you to see Miami because Miami is actually cool. So yeah. I knew that we only had one night that we weren't doing family stuff. So I said, great, you're going to think Florida's actually cool. I'm going to show you a cool part of Florida. What happens? We get in the car and we get on 985. And when it rains in Florida, it can literally pour, like the sky can open up. And like, if you've lived in other parts of the country, you've never really seen this, but it can rain that you literally can't see in front of you. So it's not safe to be on the freeway. So we're on the freeway. It's like one of those torrential tropical rains. We couldn't see, it wasn't safe. So I'm like, damn it, I want to get to Miami. So we say, okay, we'll take the streets, which is like going to make it not an hour drive, but like an hour and a half drive. We get on the streets. It's still really, really hard to see. And it's like not driving 8 blocks, it's driving a long time. So I just start crying. I'm so upset. I'm so frustrated. What are the odds of this? I mean, yes, it happens, but it doesn't happen all the time. And now we can't even make it there. So we have to turn back around. We wind up turning back around. We pull off on Las Olas Boulevard in Fort Lauderdale. The only restaurant, for whatever reason, at that time that was open was a Hooters. So we don't go because it's like so lame. I go, Fort Lauderdale is not Miami. I want you to, not that there's not nice parts of Fort Lauderdale, because there are, but this one little part. And I'm in the car and I'm so upset. And he reaches over and he holds my hand and he goes, I don't care what we're doing. I just want to be with you. Isn't the whole point to be together? So it doesn't matter if we're in the car and we can't find a place to go and it's raining, or if we're sitting at that perfect hotel in South Beach, we just want to be together. And I just was hysterical. I cried so hard because I felt so unconditionally loved. And he was so right. It was like, why was I making it so much harder when none of that actually mattered? And I'll never forget that rainstorm. We wound up going back. We just went to our hotel. We ordered room service. He made me laugh so hard while I was ordering the food.
Lol is so, but you see his wisdom. You see his wisdom in that moment. It's like the happy moment is there. Like we just weren't tuned into it in that specific, and I mean, truly, like the happiness is the goal of every other goal, right? The reason you want to go to the beach is so you'll be happy at the beach, right? The reason you maybe want to boat or you want a relationship is you're like, I'll be happy when I have that relationship. I'll be happy when I have that car, boat, whatever it is. So like, why can't you just skip the middleman? and be happy, and then also see how much you also get to attract from that place.
Yeah. Joe Dispenza says, why would you wait for something to happen so that you could have the emotional payoff of that thing instead of just giving yourself right now the emotional payoff, whether you want to feel more joy or gratitude or connection. So have it. And then like, wait, you mean it's not dependent on something to happen to me? You mean I actually can feel good right now? Susie, I don't think people get that. I don't think we really understand that.
That's probably the biggest realization of my life. Like that power, like that decision, that ability to tune into how good life really is. Like I feel, look, I don't have regret because I had to go through what I had to go through to learn what I've learned. But if I did go back, if there were a rewind, I would have enjoyed a lot more. And look, I still had fun. I did my things, social, blah, blah, blah. But I would have worried less. I would have enjoyed sometimes I used to think like, this is the hard part of the memoir that I'm in, the better part's coming. But like, look at anybody when they talk about their early days, their early struggles, there is joy there, right? There's pride in those moments. And I remember, when we first moved to New York, I didn't have a job. I had to wait for work authorization. We had a 5-floor walk-up apartment. It was $18.50 a week. Sorry, a month, $18.50 a month. And it was a lot for us. Like I would walk 3 extra blocks to get the blueberries that were $1 off. I'm very good at living on very little though. I've been trained this way, right? But I remember thinking like, I just need to get a job. I just, and I'm like, I would have enjoyed that walk to the blueberries. I would have enjoyed the cold weather. I would have opened my eyes to New York without thinking, I can relax as soon as I have money, so truly, like, what can we just be allowing in? Because it doesn't affect the outcome in a negative way. We think if I relax in, I'm going to lose my edge. Nothing will happen. I've got to suffer. But it's just simply not true.
Like, when I was in college, I was a theater major at Florida State, which has a great theater program. And then of course I quit the theater program. But in any case, Alan Ball, who went to our school, wrote a movie called American Beauty. And he also wrote a TV show. He also wrote 6 Feet Under. He's done a bunch of very successful things. And he was talking to us at this point in his career where he already had all of this success. And he said, I just want you to know that there was a time in my life when I was living in New York City. I didn't even have a mattress. I slept on the floor, and I lived in this walk up above a bar. And I woke up every day for my dream. I wrote pages and pages of things. Some were good, some weren't. And I truly can say I was happier then than I am now. And he said, and now the phone rings all the time. Anything I want to work on gets greenlit. And I'm really grateful for it. But I was really happy sleeping on that floor. And then he said that the whole reason he wrote this movie, American Beauty, which a lot of us have now seen because it was a very popular, successful movie with Annette Bening and all the rest. Anyway, he said, I wrote that movie because I was sitting in front of the World Trade Center at the time. That was still a thing. And he said there was all these people rushing in and out of that office building. Just, people were so serious and they were so busy. And I was sitting on this little bench eating a sandwich, and there were all these beautiful fall leaves, and they were just kind of dancing, right? And in the wind. And there was a plastic bag that got kind of caught in this like windy leaves. And I kept looking to see if anybody else saw how beautiful this fall was, this moment. And nobody saw it. And so he said that was actually the moment I wrote this movie, American Beauty, about this perfect suburban upscale neighborhood. And inside, everybody is really actually struggling. And then there's this one kid with a camera. And so now if you go back and see it, he sees this plastic bag in the leaf.
I remember it. Yeah.
And I get chills thinking about that, Susie, because that just really kind of is a depiction of everything that you're talking about.
It really isn't. I remember in that movie at the end, I mean, there are no spoilers here. It's an old movie.
Yeah.
You've all seen
20
it.
years old. Yeah.
But at the end, I know, when like the lead character dies, like Kevin Spacey, he says, I want to, on his way out, he's like, he realizes this, right? The realization is at the very end. And he's like, and I'm so grateful for every moment of my stupid little life. And I just thought, wow, like how much at the end, like this is how we regret proof our life, Cathy, right? This is by living this, noticing the plastic bags, looking at the rain, I mean, even just rain on a window. It's like to celebrate simplicity, to look at everything that you have, like everything that just surrounds us. It's all temporary. And to miss it is like the greatest tragedy. And it's so easy to do. Like that's the easiest thing to do.
You just brought tears to my eyes. And I don't know why we're going off on movies, but just one more example is if anybody saw the movie Soul, which is a Disney Pixar movie, came out last year. We watched it on Christmas Day. And again, if you've seen it, this is good. If you haven't seen it, I'm going to skip to the next 15 seconds. But in the end of the movie, after this, I call him a kid, but he's a man. He wanted to be a jazz musician, and he gets a chance to go back he gets the chance after this whole thing, he gets a chance to do his life. And he has this total knowing that the most magical things was like eating the slice of pizza and sitting on his dad's lap. And
because your soul can't do that. Your soul can't do, like, your soul can't taste chocolate ice cream. Your soul can't experience intimacy with another person, right? It's our physical temporary bodies in this time space, right? So like, my only job is to enjoy myself.
Susie Moore, you're such a gift. Two more things as we're kind of rounding this out. One of the things that you talk about all the time, and you talk about it again, I'm glad that you put this again in the book, because it's something that you say that nobody else really talks about. Qualifications aren't everything. And even though we've talked about this when you've been on the show before, we can't talk about it enough. And I just want you to remind everybody why that's also something you do not need to consume your life stressed about, because it actually doesn't matter.
It's so interesting, this, isn't it? It's kind of like, you can see why qualifications seem like they're everything, with our pursuit of always wanting to feel like we're enough. But I can tell you, Cathy, I've worked with so many people who are the most qualified at the highest levels, and they still want more. They still think there's another level, there's a new, acquisition of something. And I think that if you're here, you're qualified. Like, if you're alive, you're qualified. Right. There's something to, like, this. I've always just kind of known this. I've just known this. Like, if I'm here, like, the qualifications are for other people, maybe, who don't trust me yet, maybe, if that, like, that could be the thing. But if I show up and if I'm myself, like that, you qualify yourself by living your life. And I see, a lot of procrastinators, people thinking they need this, they need that. You just need okay, I'm doing it. You just need that. You just need that, like, ounce of just courage, like the ounce of, I'm going to go for it and try the thing, like, move forward, with the thing. And qualifications are great. Yes, there's nothing anti that, certainly do what feels good, like, trust yourself. But if you're alive, you're qualified. Like, and the way that we become qualified is, the way that we become experts is through giving, right? And by showing up and being generous. That's how, by making other people's lives better, that qualifies us more than anything else, more than anything we can do by studying alone in a room somewhere.
100%. And that's what I wanted to end the podcast with, which is the last thing you talk about in the book, which is be a light for others. And I love that you end it there, as if that's what it was all leading to, right? And that really is the epitome of what you just were saying, that you're here to serve and everyone's qualified to serve. So let's stop making it that we're not, and let's just actually go be a light for others. That is why we're here. And that is what really actually feels so good. So what did you mean by putting that at the end of the book? And what does that mean to you, to be a light for others?
Well, along the journey to learning anything, I think we always realize that all the lessons we learn and the wisdom we acquire is always to be given away, right? We can't, to hold what we've learned, I mean, it's a tragedy, right? So I think to myself, I can write books and I can create YouTube videos and do my thing and talk about all the things that you can do to make your life better, right? And that would be fine, right? I'm sure that there'd be some people who'd like it, but isn't me living in an easy, gentle, self-compassionate way the most generous thing that I can do? Like, to be demonstrative of everything I speak, right? So to be easy on myself, to have a good time, to prioritize my pleasure, to prioritize, what feels good for me. Like, when you live that way, everyone is like, what's your secret? Like, why are you always so happy? And no, right? I'm a human being, not always happy, right? But I can tell you that by choosing it a lot of the time, and by being conscious, and by questioning my stress, and allowing a lot of good feelings to happen spontaneously, constantly, that is generous. That's a generous way to be in the world. And if you can allow in ease, and you can show up differently because you have this let it be easy philosophy, like, active within you, then it elevates every place you go. Like, everyone you meet is touched by it. Everyone wants, like, they're like, wow, there can be another way. So when you're proof, when you're living it, when you know that you may be rejecting some of what the world tells you need to do, or how you need to feel, or how stressed out you need to be, that is the gift. like your very own presence and experience. And you can't fool the people. Like we can talk about it, like we can say all the right things and do all the right things. But when we truly allow ease in, we allow a gentler, kinder, more loving way of just being with ourselves in the world, then the world has changed.
That could be the most incredible acceptance speech for any president. I mean, what you just said would change the entire world. We wouldn't really need much of anything anymore if we really heard that. Like, that is my political agenda, what you just said, because how much would that completely stop the madness and spin everything into gold? And it leaves me with the last thing that it leaves me with, which is something I want you to address if you can. I think at the end of the day, because you've made such a brilliant case for this, and you are, like I said at the beginning of the show, and I'll say it all the time, you're so genuine and you're so loving that it's so easy to receive what you have to say, because that's your energy. And still, I think at the end of hearing this or reading this book, there might be a little voice that feels as though, but I don't feel worthy of being happy. And my voice breaks and cracks when I say it, because it's part of why I do everything I do, is to tell people that you do not have to earn that, right? And it's because I saw that so much in my home growing up, where people around me, who am I to be happy? And I think we're so hard on ourselves, right? So how do we finally, summing all of this up, console and love that part of us enough into life so that we will actually give ourselves the permission to let this be easy?
You're right. Who am I to be happy? I'm not worthy of being happy. There's
Right.
so much I have to do or hustle for or create or approval I need first. If you think I'm not worthy of being happy, try it anyway. Try it anyway. If it's uncomfortable, stick with it. And don't take my word for it, right? Try it anyway. Allow it even momentarily. See what happens. See how your body responds and see if that feels like truth. See if that feels like truth, because in our most loving moments, when we connect with others, when we laugh, when we see something that feels really serious and heavy and we question it and we go, maybe it's not that bad, that relief that we feel, the lightness that we feel, the coming back to ourselves that we feel, that's the truth. And the truth, there's this old expression, St. Augustine said this, the truth is like a lion. You don't have to defend it. Just let it out and it defends itself. So
brilliant, Susie Moore. Oh, it was such a pleasure to get to bask in the angel that is you. And I'm so grateful that God spent extra time giving you everything you are. You could power the whole world just with your heart. Really.
I feel the same way about you, Cathy.
You know
I'm
what?
so happy
You are.
Yeah.
You are. So, okay. We are going to now tell them where they can follow you, where they can get this book.
Yes.
And then I'm going to remind them about the free hangout on Zoom that we're going to be doing for anybody who buys the book. It's going to be in just a couple weeks. We'll be hanging out. We'll be doing some Q&A. You can ask Susie questions. You can ask me questions. We'll be doing some on the spot coaching.
It's a party.
Yeah. The link for that is Susie Moore. Go ahead.
It's letitbeeasybook.com/Cathy. Cathy with a C, as we all know. So letitbeeasybook.com/Cathy.
Okay, so go get your book and then go to letitbeeasybook.com/Cathy, and you guys can come to this. That'll be your ticket to this hangout. Plus, tell them where they can go buy the book and tell them where they can go follow you.
Yes, Let It Be Easy is available everywhere books are sold. And for more fun, accessible confidence resources, you can just head to my site, susie-more.com.
Susie, thank you.
Cathy, I love you. Thank you. Let's do this again tomorrow.
Okay. Every time I'm with you, I actually do have that thought. This is so easy. Isn't there a way that I can just do this? But it makes it just so all the more delicious when you're here. So thank you for coming. This was awesome.
Thank you, Cathy. Mwah.